when the world is crap and you've got the blues, just take a break from all that horrible news for something crazy, amazingly clever, and never half-assed. Except when it is. Yes, it's the Randy Rainbow Podcast. This song is almost over, girl, so wipe your tears. You're in for a treat, and feast your ears on this remarkable feat. Yes, it's a famous celebrity finally podcasting at last. This shit is revolutionary. Randy Rainbow's Podcast. The Randy Rainbow Podcast. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of my podcast. Holy shit, I have a podcast. Oh my God, it's so sexy. I am really happy that you are joining me, and I'm so happy to be here in your ear. It's so intimate. And thanks so much. We're going to have so much fun, right? Right? I'm told by my producer that I should introduce myself. Apparently, she feels that there are some of you out there who don't know who the hell I am, which I think is rude, but I will indulge her. My name is Randy Rainbow. Some of you, I'm sure, know me from my musical comedy satire. Perhaps some of you know me from Grindr, if you're in the area. And many of you probably know me as the original Becky on the hit sitcom Roseanne. Anyway, no matter how you know me or don't know me, we are together now, and that's all that matters. I had many reasons for wanting to start my own podcast, not the least of which was money, lots of money. The powers that be assure me that we are just a few episodes away from seeing Joe Rogan-type numbers, at which point the cash will really start rolling in. I have a feeling they say that to all the girls, but fingers crossed. Another reason I wanted to do a podcast was so that I could, have a place to talk about stuff that I find interesting or annoying or both. Like this new app I was just reading about today called the Right Stuff app, which is a new dating app designed to help conservatives meet like-minded people and hopefully find love in the process. It's where I met Madison Cawthorn, and we have been in a committed and loving relationship ever since. I'm just kidding. It actually doesn't launch until later this September. It's by invitation only, and currently it is exclusively for heterosexuals, which is so surprising. I'm not surprised to learn that it is backed by former fake president, our Lord and Savior, Donald Jessica Trump. Not only is that not surprising because it has been launched by, I believe, the sister of former White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, but also because The Right Stuff, as many of you know, is Donald Trump's favorite New Kids on the Block song. You know he loves a good, cheesy 1988 Long Island wedding playlist. That is his milieu, if that's even a word. I don't know. But the dating discussion brings me to another reason that I was excited to podcast, and that is that I am single AF and I need to date. It is time, and I can't sit around waiting for Kayleigh McEnany's family to create an app for me. So I am encouraging all of these single bachelors out there. Hey, you don't have to be single. Why am I discriminating? Any of you, available or semi-available, adjacent men out there who would possibly be interested in some romantic involvement with me, I encourage you to click the link in the show notes, I believe, for our voicemail. And you can leave me a message or a comment. So that's for anyone who wants to talk to me or ask questions, ask for advice or things like that. But it's also for people who want to date me. And I know your mothers love me. Please don't call. If you're a mother, I beg of you, do not call and say, I have a son for you. I'm going to fix you up. I have been here before, madam. This happens every day of my life. Mothers love me, and I love mothers, but I feel that they are deceptive and lead me on by telling me that they have these hot sons that they are going to set me up with, and frankly, it never happens. It never happens. They tell me what I want to hear, then they get their selfies with me, or they get their autographed copies of my New York Times best-selling memoir, Playing with Myself, available now wherever books are sold, and then I never hear from them again. Where's the hot son? I have a feeling that he never existed. So let's cut the shit. All right, enough of that. The real main reason, the most exciting reason I had for wanting to podcast was so that I would have the opportunity to sit and chat with some of the people that I love and admire most on this planet. And that certainly describes today's guest, my very first guest, someone I have loved and admired for many, many years, as we all have. Not that many years. I mean, he's a very young, vibrant, attractive and talented man. He's also one of the producers of this podcast. Did I mention that? But even if he weren't, I would say all these things about him anyway because I love him. And of course, I'm talking about the one and only Sean Hayes. And he is here, and I'm going to talk to him a little bit later in the show. But first, it's the Randy Rainbow Podcast. Let's answer the phone. Pick up.
Randy, this is Evan. Is it true you were circumcised by a Jewish space laser?
Thank you, Evan, for your question. Yes, the rumors are indeed true. I was circumcised by lasers, Jewish lasers from outer space at a bris one dark and stormy night, just last week, as a matter of fact, so this is still very fresh. It was a bris funded by George Soros. It was not only funded by George, he was actually the DJ that night, if I remember correctly. I'm not going to lie, the whole thing was quite traumatic for me, Evan. Not just for me, I mean, for, as it turned out, much of California, because at the precise moment of my circumcision by the Jewish lasers, wildfires ignited and spread through much of that area. So it was a night of tremendous loss. And I'm not just talking about the 8 to 12% loss of sensitivity in my genitalia. I'm talking people's actual property was lost. So frankly, I don't like to talk about it, Evan, but thanks for your call.
Randy, what is your highest singing note? Oh, I'm Sarah, by the way, from Canada.
All right, listen, any musical questions, I get very self-conscious because here's the truth. I am not musically literate. I think I have a pretty good ear, and that is how I accomplish everything I need to accomplish, but I am a beauty school dropout. I'm an everything dropout. I dropped out of piano lessons. I dropped out of, music lessons, and I don't read music, and I can't tell you the notes that I'm singing. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know. See how I'm getting defensive? Actually, when I do my videos, my musical director, Kissel, for all of the harmonies that I do to back myself up, he sends me like vocal guide tracks for dummies and plunks out every melody, and that's how I learn my harmonies. And when people ask me, if I'm at a party or something and the piano player is like, what key? I usually say Kristen Chenoweth, down the octave and half a step up. That's usually right in my sweet spot. So, yeah, I don't know. But you have a beautiful voice, Sarah, and I thank you so much for your call. Show off.
Randy, of all of the people that you love and admire in this world, if God said you could come back as any one of them, who would it be? Would it be Carol? Would it be someone else? Would it be Barbara? Inquiring minds want to know. Thank you. Bye, Queen.
Oh my God, that's a good question. I can't possibly choose one diva to come back as. Why am I dead? Why is this the scenario? And why can't I just be Barbara now, like in this life? I don't know. I'd love to be either of those two. And I try every day. At the beginning of all this, I think because of the political nature of a lot of my satire, when I would get interviewed by people, the interviewers would often ask, like, who do you want to be when you grow up? Who are your role models? Do you want to be like Jon Stewart? You want to be, Stephen Colbert? And I'd be like, no, I kind of just want to be Carol Burnett. Women primarily, have inspired me my whole life artistically. I guess that's nothing new, for a queen like me, that diva worship. But God, Patty and Bernadette. And it's funny that you should mention Carol Burnett. I don't know if I'm at liberty to discuss this, but whatever, it's my podcast. I will just let you know that on the next episode, I believe episode 2, we have a very special guest, and it's Carol freaking Burnett. Can you get over it? She was kind enough, although she does not do interviews very often. We were very lucky to get her, so stay tuned for that.
Good luck, bitch.
Now that's a good voicemail. Just right to the chase and leaves you feeling good about yourself. Thanks, bitch. Love you. Hey, if you want to leave me a voicemail asking me a question, it can be anything, really. It could be a comment or a question about my personal life or professional life. It can be a question about your life. You could ask me for advice or, dating tips, though God knows if you're coming to me for dating advice, good luck to you. But it could be fun, so I'm told to tell you to go to the show notes for the link. Click on the link and leave me a voicemail. And don't forget to include your name so I know who the hell I'm talking to. It's the Randy Rainbow Podcast Variety Show. My fellow Americans, straight people are and have been a part of our story, and we welcome them into our cities and neighborhoods. But recent interest and acceptance of gay culture by straights is having unforeseen consequences on our communities. Sadly, sidewalks from Hell's Kitchen to Chelsea to West Hollywood and Silver Lake have become overrun with bears and twinks eagerly awaiting a table at their weekly Sunday drag brunch/day drinking spot. As president, I will immediately sign an executive order limiting the number of straights at any brunch to 2 per table in order to better serve the alphabet community. Additionally, in order to ease the commercialization and overcrowding of our pride parades, my administration will provide straights with free tickets to any current Marvel movie of their choosing during the month of June. If you vote for me, I promise to fight hard for hot people and those who agree with everything I say, and together we can make a difference. Or whatever, fuck it. Couldn't get any worse, right? I'm Randy Rainbow, and I approve this message. Paid for by Randy Rainbow for president. So what? Shut up. That was really a kick, but enough of that skit. Time to drop all the shit now. So let's cut the shit. I think I'm fabulous Kiki with someone I love would be best. It's time for a guest. Since this is my very first podcast, I needed a very super special, gorgeous, hilarious, legendary, iconic first guest. But instead, I got Sean Hayes, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, Sean.
That's
welcome.
Brilliant. You took the joke away from me. I was going to be like, wait, when does he get here?
Well, don't you think I'm not going to be one step ahead of you this whole time?
By the way, our whole relationship, you're one step ahead of me.
How do you figure?
Because you're fast and quick and funny and great and amazing.
I'm just ripping off Sean Hayes this whole time. What are you talking about?
You're so sweet to have me. This is so exciting. I love it. I can't wait to hear how this goes.
Yeah, I know. It's like a lot of pressure. This is my first podcast interview, so please be gentle.
Okay. I'll go slow.
All right. I have to go. No, I am full disclosure, this is a Hazy Mills production of which you are the Hazy. And so thank you.
That's right.
For this opportunity.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
You're the Oprah to my, I would say Dr. Oz, but that's not like a positive reference these days, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, you're just like, I've always called you my Oprah, but I'm really happy to have you. I want to start just by being self-indulgent because that's my brand. and tell you that I love you and worship you and adore you.
Likewise.
Thank you. But you have really, no shit, been just an incredible source of inspiration and courage for me and joy throughout the years, as I know you have been for so many, especially, I think,
Thank you.
people in my age group who grew up with you and people in the LGBTQ plus community and in the comedy community. So who was that for you is my first question. Did you have...
I love that. Yeah, no, first of all, thank you. You're so sweet to say that. And I don't know what to do with those kinds of compliments, because I was just being me, which I suppose is right, is the core of it. But anyway, who was that for me? That was probably, I grew up watching Saturday Night Live in the heyday when it first started in the 70s and 80s. And so I can't believe my mom let me watch some of those sketches where, like, John Belushi, it was in a sketch where they played bees, like at camp,
right,
and they would masturbate when the lights went off. And I was like, I remember like being 8 years old or 9 or I don't know how long. And my mom's like, all right, well, it's time for bed. And then I was, I would stay up watching it anyway. And all of those people I think were inspirations. Of course, the big ones are Steve Martin and Martin Short, probably. I revered and still do both of them, and they've both become friends. So that's always weird when that happens. Like, you get older and you're like, oh, now I'm friends with the people that are the reason I'm doing what I'm doing.
Right.
So, and they're great guys.
Who was kind of the first person? Because that's really, I mean, I reference you a lot in my new memoir, my new best-selling memoir, available now wherever books are sold, Playing with Myself. But I talk about you because I talk a lot about wish fulfillment and dreams come true. And it's that moment, which has happened so much for me over the last 4 years, especially, where the idols from the posters on my wall in high school started talking back to me all of a sudden. So who was that? Who was the first person or people who were that for you?
Well, also, I'm a huge Tom Hanks fan, and I thought I had my career like laid out. Like I thought, oh, I'll just do what Tom does, like not even considering the gay thing, right? And I'll just, because Tom was in a bunch of comedies, and then he parlayed that into dramas, and then he became both. So versatile, he can do anything. And so I think when I first, the first year Will and Grace came out, I was at some event. I think it was a GLAAD event actually. And he came up to me. I was 27 years old or something like that. And he goes, "You are so funny." I'm like, I can't believe he's shaking my hand saying that. And I'm like, I am. I go, "You're so funny." He goes, "No, you're funny." I go, "You're funny. You're funny." And then we did that for like 10 minutes and developed a friendship. And so that was one of them. But the other thing was that I've said this before was one of the reasons that I felt safe coming out was I was in college with Todd, who Todd Milliner, and a bunch of my other friends. And at the time on the radio was the number one song, A Little Respect by Erasure. And I try to discover, that song?
Before my time. I'm very young. I don't know it, but I don't know anything but show tunes.
No, you don't know that song?
I probably do, but I need to hear it. You didn't do it justice just now. I can't.
No, it's okay.
I can't.
It's super famous. Okay. It was number one in the country at the time in 1988. It's called A Little Respect by Erasure. Big and it's anyway. So one of my friends said, that guy's gay. And I'm like, what guy? He goes, the lead singer. And I was like, my mind was blown. I couldn't believe you could make a living in the entertainment business being out in 1988. I was 17 years old. And I just couldn't, it just blew my mind. So, or is I 18 years old maybe? And so he was one of the big inspirations too on that side of it.
But let me ask you this. Because when I saw you on television, I mean, in those days, for me it was, and for everybody, it was Will and Grace, it was Queer as Folk. This was the first time, and I have to tell you, that we saw that kind of representation in that way, unabashedly, just gay characters in lead roles. And it was, it was crazy to me to see you just being fearless.
Yeah.
How did you know? How did you have the courage? How did you know that it was okay to just do that?
I don't know. That nobody's ever asked me that. That's actually a really, really good question.
Oh my God, I'm so good at this.
Randy, are you still there?
No, I'm done for the day. I'm packing up.
Look, he asked me a question. Now he's drinking. He actually left the Zoom.
I'm just going
so
to
I
go
could answer
bask
it
in
for-
this.
No, it's a really good question. The confidence thing, I ask people that all the time, and not thinking, oh, somebody could ask me the same thing, but I'm always fascinated with like young actors or performers or anybody who puts themselves out there. Where does that confidence come from? I think it comes from like a survival mode, maybe, I'm guessing, because my background, we don't have to get into this, but my dad left when I was 5 years old. He left my mom with 5 kids to raise. My mom worked all the time, even though she was the best parent ever, but we kind of had to parent ourselves. And then on top of that, knowing I was gay and I couldn't tell anybody, at such a young age because I was afraid to come out. I finally came out when I was 18. And then mom kind of disowned me, and that whole thing when you come out, you have to deal with. And hopefully it's gotten a little better and we have a long way to go. Anyway, different podcast. But so I had to self-parent, and then being gay on top of it and being kind of alienated builds this kind of, it's a fork in the road, right? You either go down this destructive, oh my gosh, self-pity, and it could really get to you, and you could doubt your whatever, or you can lift yourself up, be strong and confident, and say, you know what? No, I'm not going to let that get to me. I'm going to go this way and be confident. And if somebody doesn't like it, I'm going to be louder, faster, funnier. I'm going to be, and I think that's kind of where it came from. It was like, I'm not going to apologize for something I can't control, for something I was born with. And so that, and also in high school, now that I'm thinking about it, high school, I used to do like really weird things. And I used to repeat Saturday Night Live, like, the next Monday from Listening Saturday, I would imitate Dana Carvey or Mike Myers or whoever it was. And people would look at me like some people would just laugh, and those would be my friends. And the other people would be like, God, you're so weird. Why are you so weird? And I go, oh, okay, so let's just be like you and everybody else. And then I would sit there in silence with a deadpan face. And they'd be like, what do you mean? I go, well, what's the alternative? Just to be boring? I don't know. So I don't know where that comes from, but that's how I thought at 14, 15, 16 years old.
So you just put blinders on. I mean, that's how I get through life.
Yeah.
Did you even have a moment? I mean, you were on, the set of a major production with lots of people watching you. Was there ever even a moment of hesitation? Like, oh, I'm going too far. People aren't going to like me.
Of course. I remember that first table read of Will and Grace. I was like, hey, Will. And then all the writers and everybody would laugh. I'm like, why are you laughing? All I did was say, hey, Will, and I was like, is there something I'm missing? And so anyway, getting the job also filled me with confidence. And so I remember at the beginning, I wasn't as, quote, flamboyant as later on. I was more like I am talking to you now. It's just kind of more myself. And then as the writers and I developed this kind of, we hung out, you hang out every day, you get to know people. And as they get to know people, they're like, oh my God, do that thing. Because I would go make them laugh off stage, like doing some crazy shit that I would do in college or backstage at theaters I worked at in Chicago, whatever. I would just be silly. And like, oh my God, why don't we write more of the silly stuff you're doing off camera? And it kind of came this tennis match of like, oh, I'll do this and you write that and you write that and I'll do this. And it kind of just grew into this thing, which gave me more confidence.
Right. Because
they would write or Jack enters with, in a cartwheel. I was like, oh, I can do that.
Right.
And then you just don't give a shit because you're laughing your ass off and you're kind of doing it for each other more than you are for the audience.
I think that's the magic formula is the relationships and bonds that you form behind the scenes enable you to just be sort of doing jokes for your friends, and that translates so that I feel like I'm watching a bunch of inside jokes, and that's why it's so.
Yeah, exactly. Because I always thought like if I can make myself kind of giggle a little bit, that's all I care about.
Right. Yeah, but that works.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate to blindside you with a question that will make me very upset, but I saw so much of myself in you when I watched you, on screen, and I'm very codependent with my idols, so I had just assumed that you were exactly like me and liked all of the things that I liked, and we were exactly the same person. And long story short,
we kind of are.
We are in many ways, but I hope that this doesn't shame you in front of 12 million people, which is what they tell me.
Are you about to take your clothes off?
No, not yet.
Oh.
Let's wait like 5 minutes. But I asked you to be on my album,
Yes.
and you were gracious enough to do it. You, me, and Josh Gad singing a song from Gypsy. But Sean, and this keeps me up nights, when I sent you the song selection, which has Gotta Get a Gimmick from Gypsy, you revealed to me that you didn't know the score from Gypsy, and that you were in fact not really at your core a musical theater person, which shocks me because the sensibility that you seem to have, which of course I know a lot of that was written for you, but you delivered it so organically. I was very surprised that you were not a musical theater show.
Let's discuss this. I'm not a musical theater person.
Well, you're changing your answers now since we spoke last about this, but it's fine. You're embarrassed. I get it.
No. I knew some of the songs from Gypsy. I just didn't know. I just never seen it. I've never watched it. I knew some of the songs, but I didn't know the song. Of course, I know because I auditioned for it when I was like 20, the Bette Midler one on CBS, and I auditioned for the Got My Best, whatever.
Tulsa. All I Need Is the Girl.
And
track 17.
Yeah, All I Need Is the Girl. And I'll say that again. And so I knew some of the songs, but I didn't know all of them. But no, I've always been a musical theater person because I was a musical director at a theater in Chicago called Pheasant Run Dinner Theater. I was a dinner theater. And so I was the orchestra director and the vocal director for West Side Story, West Side Story, Music Man, A Chorus Line, Evita, like just on all the standards, Oklahoma. I mean, and so I've always been in it and know it. I've been so submersed. I just didn't grow up listening to the standards, of Judy Garland and
Streisand. Broadway.
Streisand and Bette Midler. And all. Not that I don't think they're talented women. Oh my God, they're super talented.
No, I have no doubt that you're a fan of these things now. I understand.
Yes, yeah. But I grew up. I was the gay that grew up with all the skinheads and the black leather.
Oh, that's problematic.
No.
We might have to edit this part out.
Like the punk rock, no, like I listened to Erasure and New Order and Depeche Mode and The Cure and Morrissey and the Smiths and all of those. That was kind of my thing. I wouldn't put on an album of Barbra Streisand.
Yeah, see, I just figured that you would. So you didn't, because my mother had a concerted effort to raise the gayest child. So she would put me to sleep with the soundtracks to Oklahoma and The Music Man and episodes of Murder, She Wrote. Like she wanted the largest.
My mom would put me to sleep with an empty stomach. Anyway,
go on. This is really taking a turn. Okay, let's go back to the skinheads. That was less awkward. So just briefly, and then we'll leave your childhood, but around your home as a kid, what was the sort of vibe there? Was everybody funny?
Yes. It's the classic cliche of, you solve all of it by laughing through it, because if you don't, you'll cry. Yeah. So it was always stuff. No communication. No like, hey, how are you feeling today about dad leaving, when you're 5? How do you feel about everybody coming home drunk all the time? How do you feel about this house that we grew up in being the hub for everybody else's friends to come over and just drink and get wasted? And like, it was an insane house. It was crazy chaos. My brothers were so darkly sarcastic and funny, and my sister was too, and we would do crazy, insane shit.
When you're funny like you, it has to. It's in your genes. You can't. You don't just pick that up. We're talking on Zoom, which is, I think we met twice in person. Once in the recording studio, and the first time
backstage at your show.
Yeah, which is, I write a whole kind of part of a chapter about that experience, which was horrible and harrowing for me because it was right before COVID happened. It was February of 2020. And I was really sick, and I flew out just for one night to do one show in LA. I was deathly ill. I'm sure I had COVID. But
You think so?
Well, what would it be? I was schlepping around the country, and everyone was getting it then. And I was so sick like I'd never been before.
Yeah.
And then here I have to walk out on stage in front of like 3,000 people, which already makes me nervous. And then I look out into the audience, and there's Sean Hayes and Eric McCormick, two of my idols of life. And
we were like, let's go see Randy, yeah.
Which I'm so thrilled that you did, but I was also horrified, and I wanted you to just leave. I wanted you to just go away.
And then I went, Dad?
But, you were so gracious, as you always are, and it ended up being a lovely phlegmery. I call it in the book because I had phlegm. I wrote that.
Gosh, I would have. Known, I just have to interject. I would have never
please.
known you're sick. It was a fantastic show. So freaking funny. I loved every minute of it, and like a true audience member, I would have never known you were sick. And of course, when you're the performer, you're like, I'm doing the worst show ever. And I was like, it's the best show ever.
Oh, that's so nice of you. Of course, I came backstage and did what you're not supposed to do, which was start apologizing profusely to everyone. But it was so bad. And I had I didn't know what the hell I had just done. I couldn't hear a damn thing. So I had to apologize. But anyway, you were the last group of people that I saw before the world completely changed. So we're here in we're still over Zoom and doing stuff that way. So how has this pandemic kind of affected you as an artist creatively?
Well, I did what everybody else did, which was, you can't shut off that creative part of your brain. You're like, I got to do something. What am I going to do? Paint? What am I going to do? Paint with my toes? Am I going to paint? Am I going to like just walk around and sing songs all day to myself? Like, what do you do? So we started a podcast, and it was called Smartless, and then we did another one called HypochondriActor, and I was like, oh, this is actually really, really fun, and now I'm having a blast doing it, and the world is doing podcasts like this one, but not as great as this one, but that's what I did. And I also was affected by it in the same way many people were, which was it brought on depression, it brought on loneliness, it brought on all of those things, but like not to bookend it with my growing up, but I in my head I was like, oh, I've been here before and I survived, so let's get out of this through comedy, and that's when Jason Bateman and I and Will Arnett kind of got to talking and said, let's do this, and it resulted in that. And then Todd, who was brilliant and amazing, my business partner, he was like, hey, why don't we do another one, because you're obsessed with your medical issues. So I was like, oh my God, that's genius. And then he came up with this title, HypochondriActor,
which is so cool.
'Cause I'm an actor who's a hypochondriac.
I get it. It doesn't need an explanation.
So anyways, the A of the actor is actually part of hypo.
Okay, we
got it.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Oh,
We're
okay,
going to cut all of this out,
okay.
guys, in post. Thank you.
So anyway, that's my long answer.
So you are, obviously this stems from your own neuroses about your medical life. I didn't know you had that. Yeah.
Yeah, what we do is, I do it with a friend of mine, Dr. Priyanka Wally, who's a stand-up and also a certified physician, right? And so she is incredible. And what we do is we have a guest come on and we talk about a medical story that they've had, whether it's like an ER story or something that happened as a kid, because I'm obsessed with medicine. I just think it's endlessly fascinating, as is apparent by the success of shows like ER, Grey's Anatomy, or all those reality shows that have to do. So I was like, and by the way, Dave Letterman, who I revere, one of his favorite things was when people came on and told funny medical stories, and I was like, oh my God, that's what I love. And so that's when we kind of came up with this thing. Why don't we just talk about it? Because if I haven't had it, I think I'm going to get it. And also, I think if you literally say the name of a part of my body, inside or out, I probably have a story about it, except for the gallbladder.
You mentioned anxiety, depression, things that this is a comedy podcast, by the way. It's really funny. But this is something that I have always been interested to ask you, which is because you're a very sort of chill person, it seems, by nature. You're not on constant.
Ask Todd about that.
Oh, no.
Or my husband.
Well, your demeanor, I don't know about your... Yeah. You're not Jack McFarland all day long.
Correct.
So is that ever now or earlier? Was that ever sort of an issue for you that you would feel put upon in any way, or expected to be the thing that people wanted to see that from the character on screen?
Yeah, that's a good question too. Yeah, I think. Now that I'm older and hopefully, knock on wood, wiser, I don't know. You realize, I was kind of, trying to be the caretaker to other people's expectations. And so I would, whatever it was, in public or even at dinner parties or anything, I still feel a little bit of that pressure to be the funny one and be on, because I don't like dead air. And I don't like awkward silences, and I don't like dinner parties of like 3, 4, 5, 8, and 10 people where nobody knows how the heck to carry on a conversation. If nobody's going to talk and be interesting, then I take on that kind of exhaustive and exhausting job. And that makes me want to stay in my house.
Yeah, I think that you just...
Because I can't shut it off a little bit.
I know. I go through that too, because people who know me from my videos, and I'm singing show tunes and very bright and bubbly, and that's not, who I am. I mean, when I have a couple drinks in me, I can be a good time, but I'm not like that. And I think you just have to grow out of that, like you said.
Yeah, and grow out of the feeling of needing to fulfill that. Like, it's just a self-imposed thing. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to just sit there. I don't know. It's very black and white, and I need to learn how to be gray.
Yeah, sames. You mentioned Scotty, your longtime husband.
Yeah.
Do you have what do they call it, a meet cute story? And if you don't, could you make one up?
So he was the DJ on the Ellen DeGeneres talk show when it first started.
Oh, yeah.
And then that ended. And then I noticed him on the television. I was like, oh, he's really cute. And I bet you he's really nice. And then it's such a long story. But anyway, I found his contact information through people that I know. And I called him up, and we ended up having a conversation for like 2 hours. And I called him up under the guise of, I'm throwing a party and I need a DJ, because he would DJ like big Oscar parties and Vanity Fair parties and celebrity people's houses and whatever. And he said, at the end of the conversation, he was like, after they ended up talking for 2 hours, he was like, wait a minute, there's no party, is there? I go, no, there's no party. I just want to meet you. And and he was out of town at the time when we were talking. So when he came back, we had dinner. And from that night, that one dinner, there's almost not a day that we haven't been together in 15 years.
Yeah, that's so nice.
Yeah.
I'm alone. I find it...
And click.
Good night, everybody. We'll be back right after this. I find it... That's so lovely. And you can just tell the relationship, it just permeates off of Instagram or wherever, whatever forum. But it's so nice. I find it hard. I mean, you've given me a podcast, you did my album, but I find it difficult to believe that you don't have like a boyfriend you can set me up with at this point.
Oh my God, I know so many people.
Well, then what are we waiting on, Sean? What are we doing?
So, but then what do you have a type?
Any goddamn type. At this point, I've been locked up for 2.5 years. I will literally date a mailbox.
Well, aren't you on apps and stuff?
I am. It's a horrible nightmare. Doesn't work. I don't know how to do it. I'm not good at it. So I just need someone to place someone in my home.
Well, what about Uber Eats or like DoorDash? Can they deliver a guy?
It's coming to that. It's coming to like harassing an Uber driver.
I was lucky enough that I met Scotty before all those dating apps, so I never experienced it. But I imagine the convenience is incredible. You just go, it's like shopping.
Yeah, well, I match with 97 people a day, and then nothing ever comes of it. I think that's we're so just in this rut of just matching with people all day.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's also my fault. I don't put myself out there enough. That's another episode. But if you know anybody,
I know. I'm on it.
Okay,
I'll put it on my list.
All right. Well, Sean Hayes, I love you very much. Thank you for being.
I love you. I'm so happy to be on here. I'm so honored.
Can you believe it? I accepted your invitation to be on my podcast. I'm just thrilled. I adore you. And
you accepted my invitation.
Yeah, to be on my podcast.
Yeah. I love it.
Thank you. You're the greatest of all time.
Thank you, honey. I hope to see you soon.
Yes.
Okay, bye.
Bye. And now the show is over, girl, so thanks for listening. It's been a vibe, and damn it, don't you dare forget to subscribe. I promise next week will be 10 times better than even the last. Except when it's not. Thanks for coming, Sean Hayes. You really brightened my day. And though you won't take the credit, girl, you made me this gay. And that's the last word.